Good evening. Welcome, everybody. I'm Pierre Audi, Artistic Director of the Armory. Thank you for joining us for this evening's artist talk. This conversation is one of many in a year-long public program that the Armory organizes entitled Interrogations of Form. We're fortunate to have Damian Woetzel with us today to lead a conversation with the extraordinary artists Ai Weiwei, Jacques Herzog, and Pierre de Meuron. Damian is a very good friend of the Armory, partnering with us to co-present several successful public programs here in 2016 and 2017. Formerly a principal dancer with the New York City Ballet, Damian is currently director of the Aspen Institute Arts Program and was recently appointed the 7th president of Juilliard School beginning in 2018. Please join me in welcoming Damian Woetzel.
So thank you so much, Pierre, and thank you, Rebecca, for your partnership again. It's a pleasure on behalf of the Aspen Institute to collaborate in this extraordinary place that is the Armory. It's a place of collaboration. It's a place of enlightenment in so many different ways, and I think that this particular installation speaks to that perhaps as much as anything that I've personally ever experienced. And I thought I'd start by asking, how many of you, have you gone through the installation? Most of you? Some of you? A lot of you. Okay, that's great. So the majority. So those of you who haven't yet, I encourage you to do so, and I hope that the discussion right now kind of leads you in that direction. The idea of collaboration is hackneyed and cliched, but it is actually, like Wilde said, true. It is essential. And in this case, we're talking about the kind of thing that you enlighten this installation. Without it, it is nothing. It is just an empty space. And you could say that about all art, but not all art is quite the same in this sense. So I'd like to bring out the artists and architects who have created this world for us, and we can have a discussion with them. So please welcome Jacques Herzog, Pierre de Meuron, Ai Weiwei. Order is important. Wait, please. That's perfect. That's great. So, very little introduction obviously needed. Directly to my right, Ai Weiwei, the extraordinary artist whose work is epic in every sense, and his life as a work of art is also epic in its influence on all of us around the world. So we want to welcome you back to New York after, and I heard you talking to the students earlier about your years in the 80s, and I realized that at that point I was living just 3 blocks north of East Village there, so I think we breathe the same air, and it's a pleasure to be with you again. Jacques Herzog and Pierre de Meuron need no introduction for the impact of their work, from the Tate Modern to the Beijing National Stadium, along with Weiwei. Their impact is just grand, and it is lasting in our minds, and it's just an extraordinary testament to their work that their names are synonymous with an idea, actually. And you hear the name Herzog de Meuron, and it becomes something in your mind. So welcome, and thank you for joining in this discussion on the heels of the opening. So why don't we start in right away with Jacques. Perhaps you could tell me, you know, the essence of this is, as I said, an idea. It is an idea. And for you, is this an idea that is placed in a certain moment in time that you thought it's time to do surveillance, it is time to create an effort around this? Or is this something you've lived with as an idea, you know, for a long time?
No, it didn't start.
If you wouldn't mind using the microphone, that'd be great. Thank you.
It did not start with surveillance. It started with emptiness, and when we visited the space, and we knew the space, of course, from previous visits, we said we should use the power and the energy, the sheer energy of this huge covered space, which is perhaps the biggest one of its kind in that city, and to make that the main thing, you know, that we offer it to people, we make it accessible, like a park, in a kind of an equivalent way to Central Park. So, and as then details came in, and step by step we started to evolve together in a conversation, the three of us. Things came up like, should it be curated, that we have programs or whatever, and then we came up with this total freedom of moving and finding your way, having this feeling of being lost. So darkness came in as an ingredient, and movement on the floor, topography, and then of course this idea of cameras and drones came in later, and that created what you now call surveillance, which of course is a hot political topic, very much related to Weiwei's biography, even more than to all of us, where increasingly it is also a fact that we cannot escape. So interestingly, what you see now as a politically hot topic is more the result of a step-by-step increasing evolution of the whole installation piece, rather than a top-down kind of an idea.
That's interesting, and I think that the ideas behind observation and surveillance, while they are time immemorial, it seems like we're on a very special speed trajectory in the last years. And when you mentioned the drones, perhaps, Pierre, you could comment a little bit about that. What's it like to work with a technology that is developing as quickly as it is around it? Sorry, my mic is going in and out, but I'll speak loud. So perhaps you may comment a little bit, if you would, about that idea of the technology is changing so fast, but so is also the concept of what it means to be surveilled at the same time in our own lives.
Yeah, but the three, as Jacques explained, the three of us had this exchange. This came up like one by one, so it was not like a given thing we want to achieve this at the end. So at the beginning it was like very open and no preconceived ideas. And one by one, the different elements of the project came up. And of course, from one point, now your question is that technology came into the concept. And understanding what it is, you know, there are different kinds of drones, of course. Then we investigated in that. What is it? How also can you have them operated in a dark space, in a covered space? There is certainly also the question of risks, you know, as you are here and you are responsible, Rebecca, what's happening here in your in your institution. And so similarly, we got also something by investigating in some technology. Also, you know, the fact that you film, you are being filmed, and the fact that what is being captured is also being projected. So I can speak for myself, but I had no idea on that, how this would function, you know, and how to also have the faces being recognized. So the whole programming of all that brought us more into the topic, what it is about, what we don't know, what is happening all around us. And talking about drones, I think a drone is a tool, is an instrument, is a thing, and a drone is something that can be like a car, can be positive or negative. So a car can kill, as we live now today, but a car can also save lives, like an ambulance. But a drone is the same thing, can be something threatening, but also a drone can also help to bring, let's say, medicine somewhere, or a parcel. So those are all those concepts that are being developed around this technology.
It's so interesting, and we're so accustomed to many of the things that we don't think that deeply about. And I observed when I was in the space, you know, as I'm sure a lot of you did, the urge between people to actually interact and to play in the environment, to find ways to be seen or not be seen. But I'll tell you my story yesterday when I was in the space. I came through the space and I took a lot of time and I watched other people in it and watched how they interacted, and I had my thoughts, and as I left Lexington Avenue, I thought, okay, and I'm going to go to the next step of this, and I thought I understood everything that I felt. And I checked my phone, as we all do, and I had a notice that a friend of mine, violinist, had posted, Damian Woetzel, Johnny Gandelsman tagged you in a photo. And I thought, oh, that's funny, you know, it's my violinist, I know, good guy. And it was a photo of myself standing outside on Lexington Avenue. And he said, Damian Woetzel, you're in the Park Avenue Armory. And so the first thing you need to know is that the exhibit was not open yet, the installation was not open. I felt very protected that I was not being, I mean, I knew I was being photographed, but I didn't really think about it. I just thought, turns out, Johnny was in here rehearsing a concert last night with Yo-Yo Ma on Silk Road, and he walked through and he saw my photo there, and it shocked me down when I thought, oh my God, I did not see that coming. And I think that's a metaphor in some ways for so much of what we go through, that we don't actually think about it, but it's happening to us, or it could be happening to us. I was going to ask all of you, and especially I think probably Jacques and Pierre as architects, about the concept of the panopticon. Jeremy Bentham, you know, envisioned this idea of the prison where you could all be seen at all times, or perhaps you could be seen, but you never knew when you would be seen. And I thought that that's an especially menacing concept, and I'm wondering if that's had any influence, that idea of the darkness versus the lightness, and just that idea of being seen at any given moment, but you don't know when.
Certainly this is one aspect, but it's also our own activity, which we think is important to consider. We move forward like the children in the forest, and instead of leaving traces behind us to find the way back, we are observed, and our way is being traced on the ground, and we somehow proactively, but also innovatively, create that drawing, that kind of path. So we also are actively involved in this, and it's not just we are victims. We are, of course, victims of power, and Ai Weiwei certainly will say more about his view of this, which is so urgent in his own biography. But we all here are victims of surveillance in a less dramatic way, but also we are involving ourselves through our mobile phones, through our many gadgets. We have electronic devices, shooting pictures of ourselves and spreading them all over the world through social media, etc., etc. So that's also part of that. It's to do with vanity. Everybody wants to see his portrait or her portrait, and so it's very psychological. You know, I think that's a very important aspect of that experience, that it's to do with many layers in your own lives, in your own way to perceive the world and to be perceived.
I think that's so interesting, because that comes to the idea of that when you watched people in the installation, how they frankly perform to some extent, and how that might relate to our online media presences, where we realize we're being seen, and we have varying levels, especially younger generations and up, where they're completely comfortable in quote-unquote performing, you know, online for huge audiences without giving it too much thought about who's watching, what they're thinking, how it is. But, you know, so I'd love to turn to you, Ai Weiwei. I have two lines of questions for you, but let's start because, as Jacques prompted, your own personal biography speaks very closely to the idea of being observed, but also as an artist, you are an observer. That is, you know, part of the artistic habit of mind is to constantly be observing. So I remember very clearly regarding the performance aspect, when you were in Beijing and unable to leave, you know, the video feeds that we would see at times, and I remember even the dancing, the Gangnam Style video, which was a real performance moment of sorts, which I thought had great amount of meaning. And I just wonder, what do you think now at this moment, having come through that, and here, and what do you thinking other people might experience of your experience, or is that even coming into it?
Well, as an artist, I think we consciously or unconsciously present things somehow relate to our personal experience. It could be some type of experience which is so special, like living under this kind of authoritarian society. Also can be experienced in this, Europe or West. Still, this issue of observing and being observed or being monitored has equal character. It's type of a power play. The power always want to see more or to know more than the one to be monitored. So in that way, it can have a superior play in many ways. So it make the one being watched feel vulnerable, or even just to sense that power has that ability, can make majority of people feel powerless because this system. But we are living in an internet age. That means this virtual reality, there's a parallel imaging and recording and transmitting information through digital technology is so advanced and so overwhelming. It already provide another lifestyle or the new patterns of act into our life. We are very clearly a part of it if we use any kind of Google Map or any kind of technical device.
The second question I had for you is, your work has focused so strongly on raising awareness about refugee issues and migrant issues, and it struck me very strongly that in some of the news stories we started seeing, sadly, over the last years, that mobile phones were an essential tool for the refugees as they migrated, and the mobile charging stations were being set up for this purpose because it was about not only communication, but it was also about location. And I was wondering, that dualism of the good and evil in that seems especially apparent. What do you think?
I think last year I have been visited about 40 refugee camps all over the world, Middle East or Asia or Africa, and different locations. And the first thing you notice is when a boat approaches the beach, the people jump down the boat and turn on the phone. The phone always wrapped by the plastic, is always mouth sealed with the passport. And they start calling on their friends. Of course, I don't understand their language because we are filming, doing documentary on a film called Human Flow, and which is very fascinating. They would, many of them really come to the shore with empty-handed, but they have a phone, and they would tell their family they're safe, and they landed, or they would connect to people already in Germany or some other locations to ask where to go. One day, one incident, the volunteers tells me that it's very funny. Yesterday they said that they're going to be in Germany. Today we interview them. They all say they will go to Sweden. We don't know what's happened. So they already built their own networks when they're, so they can, within a second, everybody can get the same information and to try to get the best deal out of this very, very difficult journey. And you see the technology played the major role for as part of their hope and courage.
Yeah, I mean, a great part of that is very good for them in terms of all of the things you described. And it's an interesting parallel, though, to the uses that are possible, that what could be done, by having people with mobile phones to understand everything from the GPS location to actual, spying and data theft and all the things that go on there. And I'm wondering if you feel that, you mentioned the idea that an audience member or participant actually in this installation you might want them to feel vulnerable. I hope I don't go too far to say you want them, but you think that might be a reaction that would be desirable coming out of this. Is it a warning, this installation, for you?
I don't think it's a warning. It's like a mirror to our daily life. As a New Yorker or somebody in the city, you expose yourself to civilians all the time, no matter where you go. I think this is a very general condition.
But the warning is to make us all slightly more aware of it, to come through this installation and then experience the photo mapping that goes on.
It's I don't think it could be a warning because the usage of those images are very most people would not know how those being monitored images are going to be used in the general condition. So even we know this camera there, we don't even know what is being recorded and how later would become something which is useful.
Yeah, I think there's a long series of choices that get made in our minds about whether it's acceptable or not, how monitored we are, and and when you start to layer on issues of safety, people tend to stop thinking quite so deeply about it because of fear. Your work has centered often in exposing, the injustice that happens. How does that play into it in your minds, all of you, actually, that the idea of exposing something for people through this installation? Even in a city like New York, which has, as you say, at every given moment, we're being monitored in many, many different ways, I think we could all safely say.
I think it's more intellectually a new understanding of a personal private space in relating to public space, which is very classic architectural topic, and how we identify an individual, which is very charming. If you see all those faces has been recorded, people can clearly tell it's me, even it's such a blurred or half face, it's me, So it's very interesting, in such a big crowd, in such a massive city, and our characters can be captured by digital pixels, and the image is so touching, I should say, because it tells each individual are different. But of course, it can be used by very different purpose. Can be used by police or secret police, or according to different society, to limit the freedom, or to use terrorism, or to use some excuse to become a police state, to control, like classic novel always has been presented.
I think that was something that I got out of it. I was with you in there, and I was watching you. And you were trying out, it seemed to me, the idea of being photographed. So you stood very, very carefully, you placed yourself, and you looked up, and you just waited a foreseeable amount of time, and then your image was on the floor. And it reminded me a little bit of what, we all have done since we were children. You stand out under the night sky and you look up, and you wonder, and you wonder. But, it did make me think, of course, of like, you weren't just doing that, you were working, and you were all working and making adjustments over the last period of time to what's happening. And I heard you speaking with the students a little bit about the creation of disorientation, a little bit.
Maybe I wanted
please
to add something to your question. Actually, your question was about how political is that piece of art. And I think political art is boring, so it's not political art. But art which is not political is also boring. So it is not a political message, which is, this is what we want to say. That would be a wrong interpretation. The playfulness that you just mentioned is very inherent in Weiwei's thinking as much as in ours. So it is much more powerful, also politically, if art has something very complex and many layers of seeing it and enjoying it, but also making you doubt, And I think that moment of doubt is important, even in architecture. Our architecture is not straightforward minimalist or modernist or whatever, but is very innocent somehow. And in that, I think I see that also in this installation. We wanted no object. We wanted no statement that reminds you of Weiwei's work, or of our work, we wanted this openness that is even more intriguing and menacing, but at the same time has something very open. I think this balance, I hope we achieved that, is where we want to go and where we see a real potential for such an installation, for such a place, also as an institution.
I love that idea of that coming from an innocent, naive place of a sort, which speaks obviously to the idea of Hansel and Gretel. You take a tale like that, which has a menacing under and overtone, and yet we walk down the long, dark hall, and we enter the space, and we stop, and then we begin to experience, and then we stop and inquire, and keep going back and forth and back and forth. But I think that idea of coming from a naive place is something we can take as a common ground. Pierre, as you watch people, do you ever feel the urge to guide them in any way? Like, is there in your mind a right way to do it as you created it, or is it just interesting to watch how people find their own way?
It's both. I think I was watching myself. So it's like you are not someone else. You are not different from the one who are here. So you're also one of them. And of course, it's interesting to see how people behave and how they react on that. For me, it's a concentration. You have simultaneousness of different things that you can experience really now and there. So to be present in the present on one hand, and on the other hand, you can have a distant. You have a view on those phenomena, like what is a public space, what is surveillance, and so on. And from this, I think to be in this drill hall, and the level of of light or of darkness was very important, because also this, if it were very bright, I think it would be
Did you consider that, to ever have it super bright?
No.
Never?
No, it was always to be in a similar condition, so not to have a day and a night condition, but to have an equal condition all the time. And so the level of light, because you get also adapt. First, it's very bright, then it's dark. Then, as all of us, we adapt. Our eyes adapt after some time. So we get also more familiar. And so we can also concentrate on different things than just like an animal. You know, like, is it danger? So I have to concentrate in my brain on, is it a danger, yes or not? And then after some times, no, it's not a danger. Then I can have different emotions or different perceptions. And this is what I think makes the space and the experience strong. And then you have to get out again into the public space. You have to get out. You don't go through this door, which would be so easy to go from the drill hall directly into the head house, into the corridor where you have the screens. No, you have to get out, so you get again in another sequence, in another state of mind, and then you come in again through the main door. You come in again, and you know what has been like recorded. And this again, you reflect. What is it about?
Yeah, I love that idea that you force us to go back out into the public space before we come in. So we have 5 minutes left with our esteemed panel. So what I thought we'd do is take 3 questions in a row, quickly. We have a microphone, and as you raise, and then we'll see who can answer what in the amount of time. But we thought we'd just get a few public, quick questions, not statements, but questions. So we'll start right in the back, coming to you in green.
Could you just say something about the grid, the white? Is that because you're architects? I was just wondering about that's on the floor as you walk.
Okay, so a question about the grid. Second question? This is the chance. Okay, we're going to do the grid.
We wanted the visitor to leave a trace, to be able to literally make a drawing of his own path or her own path. And the grid came up as an idea of Manhattan, the Manhattan grid, the orthogonality. So it wouldn't be an organic form, but it would be this orthogonality which is reflecting the city grid that you find outside. I mentioned the analogy to Central Park before. So we have the Central Park and we have the Manhattan grid. That's one explanation, but of course it has also other associations that go with it, like kind of a mechanical, almost military-like organization that structures you as you move forward.
Okay, so last question I'm going to just pose to, I think I'll just go right to Weiwei and say, you mentioned the internet age. So we're living in the internet age, and when I was thinking, I'm not sure exactly when somebody would say it began, but I know that 25 years ago, I was not particularly in the internet age. It was coming, but it was there. And I'm wondering what you think now, at this particular moment, what you would hope for in terms of our interaction with the internet, but also with the elements that we're discussing here to do with surveillance 25 years from now. Do you project into the future yourself? Do you think this is what I hope will happen, or this is what I think will happen?
The sense with technology, let's say 25 years ago, we never can imagine we're so much depend on technology. It makes us very convenient, also make us very inconvenient at the same time. And it's very hard to calculate how much we gain or how much we get lost in this fast development. But as human, it's almost like our character, our fate, to seeking for something unknown or to eager to have this curiosity and to turn the next page to see what is there. But we also trying to predict how many pages left.
Oh, beautiful. Well, with that, we're gonna close. Pierre and Jacques have actually a flight, if I'm not mistaken, so we're gonna let them go. Well, thank you all for joining us, and thank you so much for your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.